Thank you, Lisa. 29 minutes to 8 is the time. Our guest editor, Frank Cottrell-Boyce, the UK Children's Laureate, is interested in the neuroscience of reading. He wanted to look at what happens to a child's brain when they are read to. So we went with Frank to the Baby Dev Lab at the University of East London to find out more about the latest research in this area, where Frank met Dr. Sam Wass, who is a developmental cognitive neuroscientist.
The snowman. One cold, clear winter's morning, the snow came. It fell quickly and quietly, turning the world.
Wow, so we're looking at a brain being wired up.
Hi, Frank. I'm Sam Wass. Welcome to my lab.
So, Ava, you've got electrodes all over your head.
We're just picking up the natural electrical activity of the brain.
So what are you expecting to happen when Ava reads to Benji?
Basically, our brains are rhythmic. We'll see that it naturally has these kind of pulses, these patterns of regular firing. Children's brains have this same kind of rhythmic patterns of firing that adult brains do. But in a child's brain, those patterns of firing are messier. And when you give a very rhythmic structure, so you read something like the Gruffalo to a child, we see their patterns of activity changing to match this strong rhythm. And something about that process seems to help them to understand language.
Okay, but the snowman still needed a face. James ran inside and found a
So thinking is rhythmic.
Thinking is rhythmic, yeah. Thinking is lots and lots of rhythms.
Gives the snowman a great big smile. No, he was perfect. He was perfect. Look.
So they looked kind of emotionally in sync. You could tell that there was this sort of bond between them. So what is actually happening on the screen that we're looking at now?
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is kind of a graphical representation of how in sync Ava and Benji's brains are and how much are Benji's brain oscillations kind of tuning into Ava's.
So what I'm looking at is two silhouettes, two profiles with the brain represented inside the head, and they're coming together, drifting apart, coming together, drifting apart.
And then when Benji and Ava started reading, you saw suddenly the two brains came right on top of each other.
It's really beautiful to watch. It's so, like watching it on this screen with the two profiles. There are moments when they're just one.
It's something we do a lot as a species. You know, it's the same reason we go to the theatre, same reason we go to sports events together. You know, being in the same state at the same time as someone makes us feel connected to people. But from a neuroscience perspective, we really don't have the first idea why. What is it about how does the information get shared between the brains to create that effect?
So I've been talking a lot about the apparatus of happiness. I'm looking at here, this is the electronics of love, isn't it?
But it's also the electronics of relaxation. There's a couple of reasons why storytelling is really, really important for children. Children are naturally higher stress than adults, and when we're in this shared state, we pick up on the moods of people around us. Yeah, so just physical contact, simple touch will help a child to calm down. And when I'm telling a story, I breathe differently. So I breathe very slow, and you let the breath out more slowly. And that, for some reason, actually helps us to get calm.
So, Zainab, thanks for coming. We're really grateful for you for coming, and you're going to read to Asmir.
Yeah.
So tell us about how often you read to Asmir, what you get out of it. Is it fun?
So Asmir has a book every night. I guess what we like about it is it's quiet time. Right. So we also read when Asmir might be a bit upset, feeling a bit overstimulated.
So Asmir, do you have a favourite story?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's like the spider sandwiches, but it's a spider.
I don't even know that story. I think we've got a different one today. Do you want to hear a new story?
Yeah.
There's a sprout stuck up the nostril of my sneezer. It somehow found its way up my snout. There's dinner up my nose. How it got there, no one knows.
I'm a bit shy.
I think it's a Brussels sprout, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should we all do our chew together? Should we go?
Chew! Where's your chew gone?
So what Zainab was doing there just really naturally, which was absolutely fantastic, was always stopping to check which bits has Asmir understood, which bits hasn't she understood. And that's what's really, really special about parent-child reading, that naturally, you do it, you give a little bit, and then you see how they've taken it in, and then you go more. It's very, very child-led.
What book are we going to pick?
Polar Express.
You want to do the Polar Express?
That one if you want to.
So you, Ella? Nice to meet you, Ella.
You love a bedtime book, don't you?
Yeah.
Does bedtime reading settle her down? Is it?
That's the idea. Doesn't always work. Too many questions. Always talking about the characters, but we like a bedtime story, don't we?
Yeah.
I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. All aboard! The conductor cried out. I ran up to him. Well, there, said the conductor, is the North Pole. Do you remember who's at the North Pole?
Father Christmas.
Father Christmas. Well done. You remember.
You're creating like an imaginative space for the two of you to sit in for a bit, and it's not just lovely to watch it.
As soon as they can open their eyes, we'll read. Obviously, with babies, it's more like pictures and just talking, just filling the room with noise, really.
So one of the reasons why babies really like books is that they're really, really slowed down. So like people, a lot of their normal day-to-day interactions, their brains can't process things fast enough to keep up with it.
I find as well that when people aren't used to reading with children, they read quite quick, because us as adults read so quickly. It's amazing how much more they take in when you just slow down, and I'm more aware of how slowly I'm reading, whereas normally I'd read so much faster.
Yeah. I think as grown-ups we're always like, let's get this done. Whereas like for Ella, it's like she wants to linger in there. Sam, I want to have a go. Of course. Because they were dealing with like their mums. I would like to do it with a familiar voice. So luckily, Mrs. Cottrell Boyce is here with me, so she's going to read to me.
Sure, yeah, let's get the caps on you.
Are we ready?
Okay, we want some incantation now.
When I knew I was going to be experimented on like this, I wanted to go back to a story that, for me, was really, really magical, really beautiful set of words that I wanted to hear again.
In the lands of the north, where the black rocks stand guard against the cold sea, in the dark night that is very long, the men of the Northland sit by their great log fires and they tell a tale.
That's the best Once Upon a Time that I know. That's Oliver Postgate opening up Noggin the Nog. So that's what Denise is going to read to me.
Big, deep, slow breath.
No pressure.
Deep breath, Denny.
In the lands of the north, where the black rocks stand guard against the cold sea, in the dark night that is very long, the men of the Northlands sit by their great log fires, and they tell a tale. They tell of a king who left his castle and his peaceful land to travel through the dark...
That was so great. Thank you so much. Sam, what did you observe from that?
Well, you can just feel that you're going into this realm where it's not about seeing, and it's not about saying, and it's not about doing. It's just this interior world where you're just sitting and imagining.
I mean, that's one thing that struck me this afternoon, that they were put into a very intrusive situation where putting electronic things on their heads. But once they got going, the world went away. And that just happened to me. For a second or two there, all kinds of happy memories were gathered together. It sort of skims back through time, and then Denise's voice knits years and years of happiness together. It all comes together in a moment.
And that's what I find most rewarding as a parent, just that thought that you're making those memories for your kids, and they're going to be there forever.
And that was Dr. Sam Wass at the University of East London, finishing that report from today's guest editor, Frank Cottrell Boyce. We'll talk to him in just a second, but the books you heard being read there were The Polar Express by Chris Van Olsberg, The Snowman, Raymond Briggs, of course, Granny Got a Sprout Stuck Up Her Sneezer by Becky Murray, and The Saga of Noggin the Nog by Oliver Postgate as well. And the book little Asmir mentioned, Frank didn't know, is Spider Sandwiches by Claire Friedman. There you go, that's added to the list, Frank.
Thank you.
They talked right at the beginning, I think it was Dr. Wass talking right at the beginning, wasn't it, about thinking and this kind of sense of a rhythm that becomes involved when people read to each other, when a child is read to, but actually more widely as well. And that's fascinating, the idea that it is something that really brings us together, not just in a kind of slightly wishy-washy way, but neurologically as well.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching it happen. That the rhythm of their brains were kind of syncing up. It was beautiful, and it felt that this wasn't just a good thing, but it was something fundamental and essential. You know, he talked about how a baby is sort of in a constant state of stress because they're bombarded with information. You know, a baby wakes up and it's like, grass, sky, noise, my mum. You know, they're just trying to take everything in. And in those moments, I mean, watching those young mums, it all slows down and it all becomes a little bit more navigable.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the slowing down thing that really, really struck me.
The slowing down, sorry, Frank, but the other thing that's really striking, that struck me about it, was this idea that these connections that you make are the same connections you then have later in life. I think you mentioned sport, where everyone goes and does something together and it's a kind of wonderful thing, and the connectedness is part of the happiness of the experience. This is teaching that, isn't it, young? And you can imagine if it's not taught young, you don't have it.
Exactly, and that's sort of the worrying thing. There are different ways to do it, singing and talking and storytelling, but books are the most sort of off the shelf and the easiest way to do it. And it really struck me how essential that was. When I say essential, I really mean it's of our essence. It's about being human. And you're exactly right, that this is where we learn to make that connection with other people. This is these moments with a parent or a carer or somebody loves you, when everything slows down and you tune into their brain and you tune into their heartbeat and you tune into the rhythm of their voice. That's when you're taught to belong, I think. I think that's what it is, to belong.
Frank, we'll talk to you during the course of the programme. Oh, did you want to add something? You may, because you're in charge.
No, it's just that, and therefore if we miss it, we're missing something crucial.
Yeah. Okay, we will, as I say, hear from you during the course of the programme, particularly at 8:10.